views and opinions expressed by hosts, invited speakers, and callers do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of the Black Talk Media Project or the Black Talk Radio Network. Good afternoon and welcome to Black Talk Radio News. My name is Scotty Reed, broadcasting from behind these enemy lines. Today's date is April 15, 2015, and you are tuned in to the Black Talk Radio Network station as we continue our live broadcasting for the day. Do want to apologize for those who may have been looking for this particular program to be on air yesterday, but I really got caught up in some work behind the scenes in terms of the website and dealing with, coding and all kind of stuff, and just really came close to achieving an objective so that we can do more things in-house and not rely on third-party vendors and whatnot for the operation of the website, blacktalkradionetwork.com. So I do apologize. It's been a while since I've done a Wednesday broadcast, but I figured since I'm cutting the program down to an hour so I can get more of these things done behind the scenes, helping train people and just everything involved in it. So, I've cut down to an hour, so I'm going to just go ahead and do the program 5 days a week whenever possible. So, apologies again if you tuned in yesterday and I was not on air. Today, open forum. It is an open forum for today. The telephone number, we're going to do something different. We do have a conference line open. Their telephone number is 530-881-1400. The access code is 549-032#. Once you're in that conference line, you hit *6 and 1 to comment. Now, the studio line is also going to be open, and that telephone number is 704-951-5030. So again, that number is 704-951-5030. So if you want to comment, if you have some news that you would like to share, please do so by calling in to either one of those numbers. Again, today is an open forum. Got to go over the war reports. But the first thing I want to talk about is this story that involves racism and terrorism on campuses across the nation. I'm not talking about just simply college campuses. No, I'm talking about high school, intermediate school, middle school, junior high, whatever they call in these schools. Usually, I'm not hearing a whole lot of terrorism and racism going on in elementary school, and I'm talking about student on student racism and terrorism. I don't hear a whole lot of that going on in elementary schools. Doesn't mean it's not happening, but I haven't heard a lot of stories. But I've been hearing of late a whole lot of stories involving at least kids in the 6th grade, 7th grade on up, all the way to college. We keep hearing all these reports about racism and terrorism towards not only black children, but children who are non-white. And it really shouldn't be surprising to anyone when the whole curriculum, I don't care what region you're based in, they have standard tenets to their school curriculum, and it's white. It has the white supremacist worldview. It paints the white supremacists and the racists as heroes, as founding fathers, if you will. I mean, just really let that sink in. And so when racist white supremacists all throughout history are exalted and elevated and given a special place in the halls of history of this country, I mean, it shouldn't be surprising, people, that we can't seem to make a dent in all of this racism and white supremacy going on. We can't not stop white people from becoming converts to that religion. So this story that I saw today as I was preparing the Racism Terrorism Report, Volume 1, issue number 6, just published about 30 minutes ago, heavily focusing on terrorism, police terrorism. But another story that I came across or came to my email, I didn't include this one in the report, so it'll go in issue number 7. But in Cincinnati, there is and I don't know why, I guess it's I don't know if it's a white woman or if it's a black woman, but in Lebanon, this community called Lebanon, I guess it might be a little small town or a suburb outside of Cincinnati, Ohio. So I'm just going to read this to you from Cincinnati.com. A Lebanon mother of biracial children filed a formal complaint Tuesday with the U.S. Department of Education's Office for Civil Rights. Great job. That's what you're supposed to do. That's what I have talked about on this program, or information that I have shared. When we covered the stories about, Tillman Hall, a building, a prominent building on the Clemson campus, Clemson University in South Carolina. This man was a racist white supremacist, if ever there was one. And the students, trying to get the building name changed. And then the Christmas party, SAE, again, the same fraternity where we had those frat boys led by Levi, I think his name was Pettit, chanting nigger on the bus. This chant that was taught to them, this song that was taught to them. And while I was writing for those stories and preparing for interviews and to also, just talk about those stories, I was like, this is a crime. This is a crime. There are laws on the book, especially when we come to our school campuses. See, school campuses are viewed and treated differently than you and I just out here on the street, or, hanging out at a strip mall or at the mall. No, schools are supposed to be safe places, but stories like this one coming to us from Ohio show us that schools are not safe places for non-white children. So this Lebanon mother, she went to, and this is on the web. All you got to do is look up, if we want to call it, even though we know it's racism, but they want to call it bullying. Well, we still file those complaints, but we still assert that this is race-based bullying. This is terrorism. But there's a website. I mean, you could just Google bullying in U.S. The United States federal government has a website it maintains that informs you about your rights and students' rights and the formal complaint process, because you don't have to simply settle for what the superintendent of your school district says. Yes, you should go through the chain of command, as they called it in the military, and first file your complaint with the principal. If you don't get satisfaction, you go over his head. And if you don't find any satisfaction within that county or that school district, then it's time to take it up a notch. So, continuing with this story, this Lebanon mother filed a formal complaint with the U.S. Department of Education's Office for Civil Rights, accusing the school officials of ignoring complaints of racial harassment and bullying. Robert Newman, an attorney for Heather Allen, said his client has complained to school officials on at least 9 occasions this school year regarding racial harassment of her children in Lebanon junior and high schools. So that's junior high and high school. Nonetheless, school officials failed to ensure a safe school environment for minority students. Now, I don't, again, because the victims are many, I can't be expected to know all the victims' names, but it was, a week ago? And surely it's published, without a doubt, published it in the Racism Terrorism Report, Volume 1 on Black Talk Radio Network. I do remember the story and posting it and talking about it on this program, talking about the 6th grader, the black female. She said that a couple of students had called her a nigger, and then she go to her locker and find notes on her locker talking about niggers don't belong here. And she told the principal, and the principal told her, oh, these just words. Words will never harm you. Don't worry about it. No big deal. You just go about your day. So anyway, that the girl was not satisfied with her principal's answer to her being terrorized, being bullied on the campus, told her parents. And then her parents went to the school, filed a complaint, wasn't happy with that, kept going up the chain of command. And for whatever reasons, I think it was the Elkin School District. It was some state up north. It might have also been Ohio. But anyway, went to the chain of command, wasn't happy. And they ended up getting banned from campus. Because they must have been advocating too loudly, too strongly for the rights of their children to be free from terrorism at school. And so now the sheriff's department is investigating that particular case. So I just wanted to remind you of that particular case. Again, this happened about a couple of weeks ago. We talked about it on this program. And these are not isolated incidents. I'm pretty sure if you talk to any non-white student in a predominantly white school, one like what I went to, starting in junior high when we moved back to North Carolina from Detroit, that was like my first real exposure to being surrounded, by white people. And certainly if we talk to people who have gone to those schools and who are in those schools now, they will be able to tell you about these little acts of racism and whatnot. And they may not have even complained about it or anything, and they just accepted it and went about their day. So these are not isolated incidents. We have these grown people who want to perpetuate the system of racism and white supremacy. And they are going to no matter what their job title says and what their job duty description is, to protect all the children. No, they're going to afford these little terrorists in the making white privilege. Because they don't want them to get that in their school records and whatnot, and follow them through their academic career. No, they don't want that. They know that can be a problem for those children. And so again, this is all part of a systemic system, a system that is global. But I think that the epicenter of racism and white supremacy is right here in the United States of America, USA Inc. That's why I proclaim that we live behind enemy lines. So, yeah. You're listening to Black Talk Radio News. My name is Scotty Reed, broadcasting on the Black Talk Radio Network. Did get an email. Tando Radio Show will not be on air today. They will not be on air today, but at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern, New Abolitionist Radio will be on air. So I'm going to take a short break just to remind you the telephone number 704-951-5030. That's the studio line. The conference line is 530-881-1400. The access code is 549-032#. You hit star 6 and 1 to comment on air. We'll be right back. You are tuned in to the Black Talk Radio Network. For live programming schedules, visit us on the web at blacktalkradionetwork.com. Welcome back to Black Talk Radio News. Again, just to remind you, this program is down to an hour, but it will be on Monday through Friday at 4 o'clock to about 5 o'clock p.m. Have to do it until some of these people training comes along, which they are making progress. All right. We do have a phone call. We want to go to the conference line, area code 619. What's on your mind? Area code 619. Did you have a question or a comment? Area code 619. You may have yourself muted. Okay, I see 619. I see you talking, but for whatever reason, it is not coming through. Give me just a second. I think I know what the problem is. All right, I'm sorry. Go ahead with your question or comment. We have you now.
Okay. Hey, how you doing, Scotty?
I'm doing okay. I'll just put it that way.
All right, man. Listen, I'm calling out of San Diego, man. My name is Tori. I actually, I've been listening to you for a while since you left from Blog Talk, and I had a question. I wanted to make a quick statement, and I also had a question.
Sure.
So I'm calling out of San Diego. Recently, I just was released from slavery here in January.
Okay.
They put me in. I literally was driving down the street. And the slave catchers decide they want to pull me over. Instead of pulling over in a dark area, I went to a well-lit gas station, and I was surrounded by a firing squad and dogs, and I literally had done nothing. You know, never told me what happened, anything. Just threw me in, searched my whole car, had my trunk hood, all my doors open, all these things. And I sat in jail for 17 days facing a $50,000 bond. Now, recently...
What did they charge you with?
They charged me with felony evasion, resisting arrest, and then they added 3 traffic charges. They said I drove all the way out the lane. They said I was following too closely to a car in front of me.
So they just stacked the charges on you. Yeah, that's quite common.
Not only did they stack charges, Scotty, they made this whole thing up. Like, it got local news coverage. The community came out and supported some of the things. When I was in jail, I actually was thinking, I was like, I should have sent the story to Scotty, but I know you guys cover a lot of heavy stuff. So, but yeah, there was some coverage that they just fabricated the whole story, and then we actually went to court, and they try to push you all the way down to the line because they keep trying to get you to plea.
Right.
You know,
right.
They try to get me to plea over and over. If you guys, you can look up my name, Tori Robinson.
Okay.
San Diego, you'll probably could find the article.
The name sounds familiar, actually.
Yeah. Just recently, there was a friend of mine had started a little campaign. There was a hashtag, and so it got passed around. It was pretty popular. But now I state that not only to bring awareness and let you guys know, like you said, Ferguson is everywhere. Ferguson is San Diego too. You know, don't get it twisted. But I say that because when I went to trial, because we started the trial process, and mid-trial, the prosecutor dropped the charges, which the judge said he's never seen happen before. But we started the trial and we did the jury selection. Not one black person was in my jury, was even there to be selected, because the prosecutor and the defense gets to just strike people out
right,
in the
right.
process with no reason. But there wasn't even one for them to even be stricken out. Not one.
Wow.
Not one black person.
I wonder what the voting percentage of black people in their county who are registered to vote, because that's where the jury pool comes from, is from
right.
the database of registered voters. And and I'm not saying that, you must not have black people registered to vote, because look, I've been registered to vote since I was 18. I'm 47 now. I've only been called to jury duty once, and I've pretty much been in one spot here for the last 25 years. So it's not like,
right.
I've been moving around from place to place. No, I've been at the same address, so, for decades. So, and then my mother, who's in her 60s, has only once been called, and she, again. So, so that's not unusual
right.
for you not to.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I was going to say, I agree. That's something I can do a little more research into. But I've been registered in the same area,
mm-hmm.
And I was only called once. And then we never, I spoke to a couple other people, and we'll get called, but we never even make it to the courtroom.
Right.
Because there's a process, and it's like we haven't made it there.
Mm-hmm.
But I bring that up to say, should we even be in these positions? You know what I mean?
What do you mean
feel like
in these positions?
Yeah, we're about 10% of the population here, or 8%, the census will say. But should we even put ourselves in a position where we can go somewhere and only be 8% of the jury? You know what I mean? Or should we be moving as black folks? Should we move to places where we have a higher population? Because you always say we're behind enemy lines. Does it make
right.
sense for us to be in these kind of positions?
No, no, I think we have to look towards what our ancestors did. And if you look throughout history, even during chattel slavery, and again, I got to remind people, slavery was never abolished. It was just transformed into prison slavery. But even during chattel slavery, our people have always escaped the plantation and went somewhere where they could be safe, whether that was with other indigenous non-white tribes or wherever. On New Abolitionist Radio, when we profile abolitionists, I can't recall the guy's name, but in the early 1800s or mid 1800s, it was prior to 1865. What he was doing was going to Kansas and Missouri, and he was trying to buy up land to, for black people to come and settle down and create towns like we have created in the past. But he ran into problems because white people in control of the land didn't want to sell, or they tried to, gouge him on the price. The Republic of New Africa has always advocated for, 4 states in the South to be a safe space for black people. And so I certainly think, that these are all logical movements, because we are not safe. We are just being picked off. And, we don't really have any, what you might call real power. And the only way for us to get power is to come together in unity and bring together, our resources. So, I hope I answered your question. It's logical for people to want to move away from the people that's terrorizing them. So. Right.
Well, yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. Basically, you're saying we should be migrating to situations where we are away from.
Or, in your case, like, okay, for example, where I'm at in North Carolina, in Gaston County, predominantly white, probably 80%. White, the little town, I don't live in town, but the little town is probably about 80% white and whatnot. But in this area, on this particular road that I live on, you know, in a 10-mile radius, you know, it's all family. It's all, you know, black people, black families that have a presence going back hundreds of years, over 100 years. And so, you know, we have little safe spaces up here, you know, and if it feels safe to me, I can certainly drive down the road and come back home and not really worried about, you know, getting pulled over in this and that. It certainly can happen, but it doesn't happen a lot, you know, cause we in this safe space. So, but the thing is we have to control our communities. That's what I was really trying to get at. We, you know, black people up here, we got like, you know, a little place where we created a little a recreational park, you know, on some community land down there so our kids wouldn't have to go, you know, to the white pool and you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so we have to control our communities and we don't have to move from where we are because most people tend to congregate or live in clusters with people who look like them. But what we have to do is start controlling our communities, and we don't control our communities. You can't be safe in a community you don't control.
They have see what happens in our area, because I think what you just mentioned is something to think about, because I live in a city. San Diego County has about 3,300,000 people, and we do have pockets of black folks. But wherever the black folks are, and we're being gentrified right now, but wherever we are, that's where you have police going around, and they're constantly, or excuse me, not police, but slave catchers, patrolling our community, pulling us over every day, making sure they do everything to dominate and contain that community. You see what I mean?
Right.
Like I've seen you guys, you've posted on your page the whole deal with the Penal Code 182.5, where the rapper, just for being a part of a so-called gang.
He wasn't even part of the gang. He wasn't.
No, he's not. Yeah, I grew up familiar with him, and we go around and we speak together. This is in my city, so no, he's not a part of the gang. But they're using that
because he knows some black people that may be in a gang. You know what I'm saying?
Well, it's not. Well, but you don't have a choice though. So this is how it works. You grow up, you play Pop Warner football, and you live in a certain area. There's going to be gang members in your area, but that's just you growing up.
I ain't got nothing against gang members. What I have against gang members is what they do in the community. Like the Crips. We all know, Stanley Tookie Williams, started the Crips as a way to protect the black community. And then you know, that whole movement has been corrupted. And so, you know, the Black Panther Party, also did, and Chairman Fred Hampton, Sr., that was assassinated by Chicago police. He was really known, you know, for bringing gangs, you know, together and bringing about these truces and politicizing these gangs. But these are young warriors, you know what I'm saying? And so, you know, what they have done is just criminalize black people knowing black people. You know, I mean, that's just absolutely ridiculous.
Right, and more so, and see, I'm glad if more of us had that mindset. We don't have that mindset as a people, because I agree with you. I don't have a problem with a so-called gang member either. These are people. You see what I mean? I grew up with them.
They're a product of the system, just like anybody else.
Exactly. And see, because the thing is, what we do in our community is we hoist up and give all this credit to anything that white people approve of. That's why we look at them the way we do, because it's like you could look at a so-called thug or gang member. At least some of these people have a mindset of independence and trying to build something for themselves. Now, it may not have been as positive a situation, but you have some of these, like the drug dealers, for instance, that would take over land and property to create an independent situation for themselves. That's the kind of energy and spirit and thought process that we need. Now, we don't need to sell drugs, but neither does a liquor store on your corner need to sell drugs that kill people either. Neither do these CVS's and these Walgreens that they open don't need to be selling drugs either. So don't single out the so-called gang members. Don't single us out, because they're doing the same thing as everyone else. You say, oh, people get killed in the process, but the police kill about 3 people a day in the process of defending their drug operation.
Right.
So don't single us out. So I'm with you on that. And if we didn't criminalize our people, we wouldn't have let a Penal Code 182.5, which is that operation when they grabbing us off the streets, wouldn't exist.
Right.
But Go ahead. I don't want to, take up all the time, but I appreciate the insights you gave. I don't know. I'm just really thinking we just shouldn't be in situations like this where I can go somewhere and there's not even one black person on the jury. Then we have to tailor our whole strategy and can't even tell the full truth because the common citizen is so biased and such a victim of propaganda to not even understand and be able to see me as the person I am. College grad, work with special ed children, work 2 jobs, have custody of my daughter, paying for her daycare, and then he just snatched me up, put me in jail. They can't even see that objectively because the propaganda they're victim to.
Well, I'm just glad, bro, that you ain't on the plantation no more. And, know, you knew, it sounded like you knew the game and they was just trying to stall to get you to plead out to something you didn't do. And then eventually you held on to your principles. And what did you say? They just dropped the charges?
We'll drop the charges in the middle of a trial. So, and I want to put this out there too for anyone listening. You guys have to be very wary because they have a lot of tactics to make you plead. They'll hit you with the first set, then hit you with the next set, and then what they even did with me is, which I think this was fake. They tried to make it like the judge is like, all right, look, we're back from recess, we're about to swear the jury in, and what they told me is after they swear a jury in, they have to finish the trial. So if they swear the jury in, they have to finish the trial. So the prosecutor's like, judge, can you just give me some more time? I need to talk with my boss, and they can give me more time. And then they went in. Then he called the counsel in the back. So my lawyer and his lawyer. I had a public defender, by the way. My lawyer and his lawyer go to the back. Then my lawyer comes out and tries to give me one more deal because the reason they say that they were pulling me over was because, this is going to surprise you. They said I had a broken tail light. I'm sure you never heard that before.
Nope, never heard it before.
So I had a broken tail light, they said, and even though that's why he said he pulled me over, that wasn't even one of my original charges.
Right, you didn't even get a ticket for it, did you?
Right. No, and it wasn't even. Not only that, it wasn't a charge. Right. I listed my 5 charges. The broken tail light was not even a charge.
Well, we're glad that broken tail light didn't lead to you getting gunned down, in the streets, and we're happy that you didn't become one of the modern slaves that's on one of these prison plantations. But we do got to move it on, bro. But please keep us abreast of the situation and call in anytime.
All righty.
All right. Peace to you.
Thanks, Daddy. Yeah.
Okay, the next caller, I'm going to come to you. We do need to take a short break, and then we'll come back, and I'll go straight to the phone line. You're listening to Black Talk Radio News. My name is Scotty Reed, broadcasting from behind enemy lines.
We have to begin to move to control our community. Everything that's in your community that you don't control is a weapon against you. Public education as it exists today is a weapon against black people. TV and news media, especially the WPP, white power press, white people's paper, and white people's power are enemies against black people. What the white press does is that it makes black people an enemy of black people.
This is Brother Elliot, host of Time for an Awakening, and you're listening to Black Talk Radio Network, new media for the new millennium.
And welcome back to Black Talk Radio News. And before I go to this next call, again, the caller, Tory, I believe that was his name, Tory Robinson. He said, look up his name, you'll find stories. But, again, just following up on something he said in the whole conversation about black people creating safe spaces for themselves, if it makes sense for us to continue to exist in these places where we are obviously being hunted down, gunned down, and then, not even being considered as part of a community, because if that county consider black people to be part of that county, to be part of that community, to be residents, to be citizens, then they would be including black people in the process through the jury pool and whatnot. But we see all over America that the pattern in practice has been to exclude black people. So what they tell you, that should tell you something right there. And so these are the reasons that black people, I reported on the day before yesterday about the report that came out, which, by the way, I do have the Professor Mazama, I think that's how you pronounce her name, Temple University professor or associate professor, and she wrote the story about the more and more black parents pulling their children out of these schools and homeschooling because of white racism. And so she'll be on the program tomorrow. Sister Cece was able to reach out. Great job, Sister Cece. I'm looking forward to speak to her. But this is why racism and terrorism. So anybody that want to call you a black separatist or try to paint it in a negative connotation, well, they just full of, bull crap. They just full of it. And they are not acknowledging the existence of black people and other non-white people in this country under a system of racism and white supremacy, a very violent system, a very aggressive system, that has always propped itself up on black bodies, black labor, just everything. So let me go to the phone line. We had another caller, area code 717. 717. You're on Black Talk Radio News. Go ahead with your question or comment.
Hey, Brother Scott. It's your brother A.O., man.
Hey, greetings to you.
Hey, man, listen, you're absolutely right about so many things. Sometimes I get emboggulated about where to start, but let me go right to the point. Literally, racism and white supremacy is supported by a concept called crimogenics. It's built on crime, it's established on crime, and it selects its criminals. You could tell that by the perfect example is the individual who shot the brother in Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. Now, literally, that's murder, and they got it on film. Mm-hmm. It would be if it was a black person shooting it, it would be a closed case. But since the system is built on crimogenics, the very people who are committing the crime are also the very people who are writing the laws. Mm-hmm. So therefore, if you literally vote and they don't want you to come into court, they'll tell you, come in for an interview. Then when they get you there, because the system of crimogenics, you don't serve their purpose.
Right.
So literally, they put you out. Mm-hmm. And the sad part about it is the very person that's being brought up on a specific charge in that courtroom literally is you. The sad part about it is when you look up and they say you'll be represented by your peers, how can it be your peers when none of them look like you?
Right.
See, they share nothing in common with you. So
not even from the same, not even in the same, I was going to say zip code, but they're probably in the same zip code, but you get what my meaning is. They don't live in your part of town. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And another thing is even the psychological aspects of their thinking process has nothing to do with yours, because in their world, their society as they see it is different than it is as we live it. So therefore they cannot understand, nor do they want to, because they already have an idea and a system that makes their idea work. That Brother Troy, you was talking about moving, and if you're going to move away from this system, what you need is a passport, brother. Because I'm going to tell you something. Regardless of where you go, it's one of the highest exports America has is racism.
Oh yeah, no doubt. And I have talked about that in the past because I got two friends that recently moved to Ghana, Africa. But I have talked about, if you think that you're going there because you think it's a safe space, it may be a safer space, depending upon where on the continent you decide to make your home. But Africa is not a safe space, okay, for black people. It is not. Racism, white supremacy. I mean, all we got to do is look at what NATO has been doing in Africa and what is it called? AFRICOM, I remember talking about AfroCom about 10, 15 years ago. And so there is no safe spaces that you're going to run and hide. Eventually you're going to have to engage the enemy. So you will hope you engage in the enemy on your own terms. And so, but I'm not one to want to run and hide. I have blood ties to this land. And every black person who had a enslaved ancestor, this land was purchased with their blood. You know what I'm saying? And so I'm not I'm not one to be ready to just abandon this land, but I am one to get with like-minded, other folks, who look like me or think like me, because everybody look like you ain't your friend. You know what I'm saying?
No, they ain't.
No,
they
not your friend.
Not.
So,
and the sad part about it is that most people don't even realize that we were here as black people. We were here in this land far before the Europeans even made their presence known.
Most definitely.
So we really have a history that we could build on. But one of the reasons why I called was because now I'm beginning to realize that black people are starting to hit this brick wall and say, well, how do we organize? I've been referring them to the Black Talk Radio because literally there's nothing else, no other media resources out there that are even considering conversating about true organization. Mm-hmm. So in turn, I'm trying to, give you the incentive to open that door to those people who are trying to organize, maybe to come together and start a show so that we can teach organization on the local level in order for it to be expanded to the community, the city, the state, and so forth. Well, because as a state, go ahead.
Well, that's the mission of Black Talk Media Project when it was created in 2008, to get people to recognize the power, number one, of the media, and to recognize, that technology has given us, an ability to communicate with each other on a global scale. And so we need to be taking advantage of this and not simply just using it for entertainment purposes and whatnot, but organizing. So that's the mission of the Black Talk Media Project. And in fact, much of the programming on this radio station is black people who have organized in the people activity area of education through these airwaves. So
absolutely. Yeah. And that's why I've been referring people to it. One more question. Is there a PayPal attached to the Black Talk Radio Network?
Yes, there is, as well as on blacktalkmediaproject.org. Y'all, I probably need to start mentioning that more. But if you're interested in starting a digital radio station, the information is all there at blacktalkmediaproject.org. I have tutorials, and this information is available to you free of charge. And so it ain't nothing to do it but to do it. Start learning, start building, and be the media that you want to see. So yes, there are PayPal buttons on both of those websites, as well as the physical mailing address for people who don't do PayPal. The physical mailing address of the Black Talk Media Project is listed on the websites as well.
Excellent. I'm glad to hear that. One more thing. Congress is trying to push a bill now that they could tax you on your bank deposits.
They ain't nothing but robbers and thieves, so it don't surprise me.
That's right. That's another way of stealing from your brother.
Yeah, so are you hearing anything from the Tea Party, the taxed enough or taxed to death party? Because this is they boys in Congress,
may be the originators of the idea. Who knows?
Yeah, certainly through ALEC and whatnot. I'm wondering when those folks gonna wake up, because they being exploited too, and they don't realize it. And like I heard on Tanya Free and Friends, they talking about restricting what you can buy with food stamps and trying to paint this picture like all these people that's getting food stamps is living high on the hog and having lobster and steak every night. And, just another way to criminalize people, because if you cut those benefits and then people aren't able to eat, okay, then they're going to do whatever they need to do, criminal or whatever, legal, to eat. So, you know, all of these cuts to the social safety net and whatnot, see, they got us hooked. They got us hooked. See, back in the 60s, the Black Panther Party, and I don't mean to go off on a tangent, but this is important. You just reminded me of something. I was listening to this lady. I don't know if she was joking or not, but I've heard other people say this, that after Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated, that nobody else stepped up. And that's simply not true. And and the reason she doesn't know that is cause, you know, she hasn't done her research on the Black liberation movement, or even that much research into the civil rights movement, you know, which morphed into the Black liberation. But that's why we do the radio program, Political Prisoner Radio, to tell you about all these Black people, men and women, indigenous folks, people who have stepped up and are in behind bars, like most people know Brother Mumia. But look, the Black Panther Party, a lot of people like to associate them with just simply guns and whatnot. But certainly they were providing a vital security, service for the Black community, because they were seeing all the same Black death that we seeing in the streets today. They were seeing it at that time too. Police have not changed. They have not changed. But more importantly, they were teaching Black people to be even more unified and self-sufficient. They had medical clinics in the neighborhood. There wasn't even a food stamp program, but they were feeding each other. All right. They came together, and the United States government later would copy many of these programs. And that is what we need to get back to. We need to get back to that sort of Black identity, that Black self-respect, and to where we start coming together and pooling our resources and defending ourselves, you know, in all areas. And we can do it, man. We've done it before. But the United States government, you know, they launched a really vicious attack on those Black people for simply, you know, being about Black independence, Black autonomy. They saw them as a threat. And so, you know, that is why they were destroyed. And quite frankly, I feel like that is what we need to be doing today. You know, we don't have to create an organization with a charter and membership and whatnot. But I mean, simply, you know, we just need to start coming together where we live. Let's start it, you know, with your neighbor, your next door neighbor. Do you know your next door neighbor name? Do y'all talk?
Oh, yeah.
You know, do you talk? Do you know, talk about what's going on in the community? Do you got a neighborhood block association? You know, so we need to do whatever's necessary for us to unite, you know, because again, we do live behind enemy lines. I have no doubt of that. And we got to come together and come up with a solution.
Absolutely, brother. And that's why I made the inquiries I made, and I always let people know about Black Talk Radio.
If
you're going to start there, because at least you have a place to plant your seed and you have a place to grow. All right, Brother Scotty, you take care, man.
You do the same. You do the same. Okay, let me go ahead and clear.
Q&A queue is cleared.
Clear the queue. We got about 10 minutes left in the broadcast. Again, Tando Radio Show will not be on air today. I think they'll be on air tomorrow, but tonight at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time, please tune in for New Abolitionist Radio, where we will be discussing 21st century slavery and human trafficking. Max and Johanna do a great job in putting together information to share with you during that 2-hour broadcast, which is every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. And speaking, you know, of coming together, you know, I am encouraged. I'm not, you know, I'm not this person who is defeated in his spirit and just thinks that, you know, that we will never be able to overcome the struggles because our people are just so ignorant and they don't know what's going on and whatnot. I don't believe that. I do not believe that. Again, I talked about technology, and then we have social media, and Black people globally, specifically nationwide in the United States, but globally, we are coming together. We are organizing. We are just not hearing about it on ABC or CBS, which we shouldn't be. We shouldn't be seeing, because you don't want to let the enemy know all your moves now. The enemy shouldn't even know you there until you smack them in the face. All right. But there is enough being published and enough demonstrations nonstop that are going on as a result of all of these slave catchers out here doing what they do. And that's capturing people to put them in a greater confinement, as some people call it. We call it slavery. Or whether it's just to get an adrenaline rush from shooting one of us down in the streets. We also learned about, the reserve Oklahoma, Tulsa County, Oklahoma, the insurance executive who got to play, cops and robbers by just donating a bunch of money. And now we see that's happening all over the nation. A bunch of Barney Fifes and stuff running around with guns and stun guns out here slave patrolling. Not even getting paid for it, because guess what? They enjoy practicing racism and white supremacy, and they ain't got to get a visa, and they don't have to travel to Africa, so they can kill little, defenseless giraffes and whatnot. No, they can hunt human beings, real human beings. Right here. I mean, I was thinking about this film. Remember, this guy name was Charles Dutton. Charles Dutton, the black guy that played Rock. And he came out with this film not that long ago. They had contacted us and was wanting us to push that film, but it was really like, about this, it was Cat Williams and him was in it, and I just wasn't interested in it and pushing it. So I didn't interview him. But anyway, he was in this movie, Ice-T. I think Ice-T was in that movie playing a homeless man. But what it was is they was kidnapping people off the street and taking them to this island and then, hunting them down and killing them. The other day I talked about the movie The Purge, where rich white wealthy people was, on this one night a year rounding up these poor people so that they can have fun gunning them down and getting away with murder. This is the reality of the situation for non-white people in this country. That is the reality. But it is not, I do not see it as we are just sitting around and ain't doing nothing and we don't have the answers. I don't believe that. Just because they're not on MSNBC telling you what their plans are doesn't mean that they don't have any plans or that leaders do not exist. But see, I view this Black Lives Matter movement as largely a leaderless movement. And that's the way it should be, because then you can't cut off a head and kill the body when you have many heads. And so I'm encouraged by all of these protests that I keep seeing in these demonstrations. That means people are not letting up. People are not just moving on the next week and getting over it. Because indeed, there is a victim every damn day. And so I gotta believe those conversations. In fact, I know these conversations are going on in people's community and trying to formulate a response. And I just think that we just need to look at what our ancestors did on this continent. Think about it. It is a great achievement for any non-white person to even be alive on this continent. It's still open season on us, but back then, I mean, my God. And they certainly at one point could have wiped us out. And the only reason they have not is because they still depend on us for slave labor. And so what was our ancestors' response? Well, was to arm themselves and come together and create black spaces. And I think the biggest damage that has been done to us is integration, school integration. As I was talking about the story earlier about the, kids being terrorized on these school campuses. See, integration just really harmed us. And I'm not talking about integration for lunch counters. I do believe if you out there, if you selling to the public, that you don't have a right to deny anybody any kind of service. If you selling to the public, if you open to the public, that means the public. That means any and everybody that got money to do business with you, you're going to do business with them. Okay? So if you open that, I'm not talking about businesses. I'm not talking about public transportation. I'm talking about education. And indeed, Malcolm X said, only a fool would allow his enemy to educate his children. And this has been the game plan. See, they didn't really get their hands on us, our children, into the 60s. They didn't get I was that first generation. I think in the late 60s and 70s is when they started really integrating this school system in America. And so what you have now had is generation of 2 generations going on 3 generations, starting on the 4th generation, no, 3rd in my family, of going to these white supremacist schools. And so it is no wonder that we are confused, that the solutions to these problems seem to elude us. It's because we want to keep being a part of something that people don't want us to be a part of. And so if they don't want you to be a part of something, you go build your own. Blog Talk Radio had a problem with Black Talk Radio. We built our own. That's what you do. The integration has really harmed us. See, they did that to, what did they do to the indigenous children when they came here? Send them to these schools, these indoctrination centers and whatnot, to teach them how to be Americans, but never fully recognized and afforded the privilege of being an American. So I can't wait to speak to the professor tomorrow. Dr. I think again was Mazama. I can't wait to talk to her about this tomorrow. Because the proper response, the logical response, is for black people to start homeschooling. Maybe bring back real community schools. So I'm looking forward to having that conversation with her. I think that's a logical response to racism and terrorism, and it is a sign that black people have waken up and they given up on this experiment. Doesn't mean they hate white people or want nothing to do with white people, but they see that this is a system of racism and white supremacy, and white people are not doing enough to bring it to an end, if they're doing anything at all. And so it's time for us to do something else. So that's the end of the program. I'll be back on air tomorrow. Again, make sure you tune in to that. We're going to be talking about the increase in black homeschoolers. It's a great response. The Racism Terrorism Report, Volume 1, Issue 6 is out. There have been a lot of protests been going on over the past couple of days. A lot of people getting arrested, and it may or may not. I don't watch television like that, but I haven't been hearing about it on television. I had to go to social media to find out about it. So go check out those stories, blacktalkradionetwork.com. Make sure you tune in to New Abolitionist Radio, 2 hours of information and news about 21st century slavery and human trafficking right here in the United States. And we're just trying to wake up more and more people, because a lot of people, again, because they were taught that Lincoln freed the slaves in 1865. The Civil War brought all that to an end. And so cause of they being taught that giving that American education, they walking around and they don't know. They don't know that one of the key pillars of economic activity of the United States is still slavery. Y'all be safe out there. Okay, recognize that you live behind enemy lines. Conduct yourselves accordingly. Just be smart. Just be smart. Be alert, and don't put yourself into unnecessary harm. Sometimes situations arise that we have no control over, but we have to keep calm, all right, and handle the situation as best we can.